James. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and glad to be here today. Joe, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Having a good time. Excited to be here.
All right, so we're gonna go over different topics on how you can roadmap a secure AI strategy. Um, so one of the things is really getting an AI readiness assessment. That's something that Center can absolutely help with. Um, Really, a lot of that comes down to data hygiene. So tools like Copilot are great, and it's a quick, easy way to start with AI, but it's going to utilize all of your data in 365 and SharePoint. And so you got to make sure if you're going to give users access to Copilot, that whatever data that they're using to pull in and help answer questions and drive their productivity is stuff that they should have access to. So that's one important thing to note. A lot of people don't realize, how open their SharePoint is. So we can come in, do an assessment of that, and ultimately you got to figure out the different groups and permissions and who should have access to what. Have a DLP policy in place. Joe, what are your thoughts on AI
Yeah.
readiness assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I actually asked a question in the chat. Believe it went to everybody around, what is your favorite AI tool? Because it'd be interesting to know if there's some favorites out there. Feel free to chat it in. Love to hear what folks are using. There's some interesting, unique things we hear about from everyone. Copilot is the obvious one. If you're on a Microsoft 365 stack, and the associated, ChatGPT and OpenAI are always out there, but Copilot is an obvious choice because you like to have that integration. But as Todd said, you could get the genie out of the bottle if the intern has access to all the payroll data via AI. We don't want that, right? And so there's very simple exercises you can do in terms of having good hygiene around access control, who has access to what, that needs to get done. And many of us have SharePoint sites that have grown, and has had what you might have is urban crawl and suburban crawl that has all kinds of offshoots. And there's some interesting data that's out there. So it's good to get some tech experts involved to just review who does have access to what, and then start with a limited group, preferably a couple of people that it's okay that they can see things across the organization. It's probably one of the leaders to do some early stage piloting. I don't know, Todd, have you guys done that with folks or gone through that
Yeah,
process? Or maybe a smaller group gets to see, maybe ask some tough questions and see what data maybe comes back and how it's
yep,
coming back.
yeah. We've helped different several organizations with that. A lot of it is once you identify all that, also building a DLP policy in place, right? So you can identify if so security numbers, if you have any data with PII information, making sure those get tagged, then you can put restrictions on that as well. So that is absolutely something we can help with. Um, which kind of also leads to another topic to discuss is enablement with sanctioned tools, like tool enablement, right? So a lot of organizations don't yet have AI strategy or sanctioned tools, and so what we've seen this lead to is shadow IT. So if a company doesn't provide their users or their employees access to a tool, they're gonna employees are resilient. They're gonna want to get their job done. They're gonna use something that's gonna help them out. They're gonna go find something else. So we saw this with several years ago with file sharing, right? So a lot of organizations were kind of slow to adopt SaaS tools. So a lot of users would go sign up for Dropbox or set up their own personal account just so they could share files easier with with their clients. So the problem with that is then you kind of lose visibility, you lose governance. They're
Yeah.
going to do the same with AI. If companies don't provide an AI solution to their employees, they'll find their own. And then next thing you know, your data, your proprietary data or potential uh, data that you don't want leaked can then go to a another cloud like ChatGPT or something that may not be contained. Um, so that's also something that we can help with. There's a lot of different tools out there to where once you do adopt that strategy, determine what solution to use. So like at Center, for instance, we decided to standardize on Microsoft Copilot. Again, it's built in. Most
Why
of our stuff
Copilot, Todd?
is in.
Like why was Copilot the choice at center
Yeah,
for you all?
uh, we utilize the Microsoft stack pretty heavily, right? With
Hmm.
SharePoint, OneDrive, Outlook, Teams. So that was a big driver. Also with the licensing that we have. So
Hmm.
with I think M365 Business Premium, E3, E5, you get the Copilot chat.
Okay.
That's not the one that integrates with your 365 data, but
Data.
it's
Yeah.
still it's kind of more equivalent to the Chat GPT where you can create an account, ask it questions, and it can help with that.
Which, by the
But
way, Todd, on that point, there was a question from the audience. How dangerous
yeah,
is the auto implementation that Microsoft employed with adopting Copilot in their default deployment? Which I'm assuming Alan's referring to the incorporated version that doesn't have access to your calendar or files data. It's basically like a mini Chat GPT that's
yep,
sitting there. So my understanding is it does not have access, and I've even tested it.
yep.
And he goes, "Sorry, I don't have access to any of this." And you do need to pay for the advanced license. But yeah, the point about Copilot is interesting because the choice that and the situation Microsoft is in is the that context drives outcomes for AI, right? Context is actually giving it knowledge that is specific to the challenge at hand, not just roving stuff from the internet, right? That's good. It's a good start, but if you're trying to drive outcomes on your business, you need it to have access to your business data. And
Yep.
so you want to start to carefully approach that. But if you can give it that context, then it's powerful. So there's a very compelling reason why you might consider Copilot because you don't have to go off and move it off to somewhere else for the business productivity side, right? It's very common that you might have multiple models running and Copilot integrated is for business productivity. Maybe you have a product or something that you're using Claude or OpenAI for. But I think that's a very natural choice. Go with what's natural for the user.
And based off what I've read, when the employees are using the Copilot chat, supposedly Microsoft doesn't allow that data to leave and help the large language model. So it is supposed to be more secure. However, I'd still recommend if you're using that and not the full company version, that you tell them to strip out the proprietary data. I'd highly recommend that. Um,
Yeah.
there are ways that you can have different tools where you're still allowing employees to use AI for personal use. It all just depends on your user acceptance policy. Um, so we have different like a browser extension. We partner with a company called KeepAware, for instance, so we can have a browser extension that kind of monitors the different sites. It helps a lot for not just AI, but to help determine if maybe there's a phishing website that looks like Microsoft 365 to help prevent somebody from logging into that. But it can also help determine, hey, this is an AI page. We're going to prompt the end user, for making sure that they're aware, hey, this is the company's use acceptance policy for AI. Do you agree or not agree? And they can continue. So it's just warning them, hey, don't the checklist of things to utilize AI for and what to do, what not to do,
Yeah.
or you can block it completely. So it really just depends.
And that's the thing is that I think being passive as a leader, like there's points in time in running a business, and I've been a business owner for now 25 plus years, and there are moments in time, the internet boom, right? The pandemic, these are good examples. Now we're in the AI era where AI is now mainstream, Gen AI specifically, and it is a moment where leaders have to understand how this is changing the way people work. And if you are a laggard on AI as a leader, that means you are probably not making the tools available to your team. And when you don't make those tools available in a sanctioned and security conscious way, where do they go? Just as Todd said, they're going to go out to ChatGPT. They're going to find they're going to find the Dropbox in AI, right? The thing that you did in that scenario, which I think Todd is a great example of what happens, right? Because people want to get their good work done. and you don't want to create obstacles. So always provide the resources to your team members for them to be successful. Be a good leader. And that means leading in AI and understanding, okay, if I'm on Google Workspace, then Copilot's probably not the right choice. I need to be thinking about the integrated Gemini feature, which I asked in the audience. We've got some folks using Google Workspace, right? So go use that and enable it. And here's some basic things. How many of you guys are recording your sales meetings, right? Your sales interactions with customers, getting auto transcription turned on. How many of you are then reviewing those so that you can then get notes out of that? Next steps. These are all really productive uses that saves you the burden of doing these manual tasks that life's too short for, honestly.
Absolutely. And with like Copilot, for example, with Teams meetings, utilize that pretty heavily. And if there's a meeting you don't find that you're as productive as you want it to be, after it monitors some of your meetings, it has the transcriptions. It can actually help. It can help guide those meetings. You can put an agenda together, and it can help keep you on track. So you can definitely utilize it to your benefit.
You know, the other thing, we use a solution called Gong for our sales calls. It's an AI-enabled sales solution. It'll tell you how much you talked and how much a prospect talked. And it actually has best-in-class numbers to tell you that closed deals happen when this happens. And generally, you need to get the prospect to talk about 50 to 60% of the time. And if you are filling the air 80% of the time, you didn't do enough listening. So and that's a challenge. So there are things that you can learn about yourself in terms of, is someone talking too much during a meeting versus somebody else, right? And are the team members able to participate? I love Gong too, Robert.
Ah, I know one topic that we wanted to get into as well is how to be productive with AI. And I think the other day we spoke, you mentioned minimizing hallucinations, which I thought was a pretty awesome way to put it. What are some of your thoughts on that? How can you be productive? Like, so you mentioned Gong and mentioned with meetings. So what are some other thoughts on that?
Yeah. On hallucinations specifically, like, by the way, to the audience, looks like there was a poll that went out. So, how confident are you in adopting AI tools without compromising security? And we've got a lot of somewhat confident. I put myself as somewhat confident. I don't, it's very hard to grade yourself as very confident at this point. Do you know why? Because the game is changing every day.
Yeah.
So I will not claim to be, and I feel like I'm in the know, but you learn something new every day. But when it comes to hallucination, I think we get into this stage where everything is AI. Everyone's excited. There's all this fluff. I was talking to teaching a bunch of U of H masters in cybersecurity students, and a question that was asked is this all just a big bubble? Is it all going to burst? Should I trust that I can use this? And I confidently told the student, look, there's the good and the bad. There was Amazon.com and there was Pets.com during the internet boom era. I love bringing that example up. Unfortunately, Pets.com did not survive. Amazon.com did. So in this era of AI, there's going to be lots of big things that happen and a lot of great ideas, but there will be successes and there will be failures. But underneath it, there is something big happening here, and it's very relevant. And so on the topic of hallucination, what I generally ask folks is use constraints and use context as a way to really provide AI a productive way for it to get to an outcome. Because do you know who else hallucinates beyond AI? Humans do. When you start riffing, like Todd, like if someone's pushing you on a topic and sometimes you put yourself on the edge and you're like, yeah, I think I heard about X, Y, and Z, and you say a couple things, right? But if you validate it, you're like, well, actually, that was kind of wrong, right? And we all do this. You could call that hallucination. It's the same thing. We make up stuff. When we live on the edge of our knowledge spaces, when we don't have context, when we don't stay constrained into the area where we're the expert, but yet we get pushed, we will riff. AI is modeling much of what humans do. And so don't put AI in that situation. Give it constraints, give it context, go do the quick wins and work your way up from the administrative burden to the little bit to the little. Don't shoot to the moon immediately. So a little bit more than maybe you wanted to hear, Todd, but there it is.
No, that was perfect. The other thing is also a lot of people just trust that what AI said is perfect. it does a great job, but a lot of times you have to actually even ask it to validate what it just told you. So one example, I had to take a Microsoft Teams meetings assessment, and I was asking it to kind of help me study for it, and asked it a few questions, and it got it wrong. And then I asked, "Hey, can you validate this?" And then it's like, "Oh, you're right. Well, why didn't you just tell me the right answer the first time?" So a lot
It's
of that's another important thing, is you can't just trust it. You need to validate it and actually make sure that that data is accurate. And even,
which is again human behavior, right? So you when you
yeah,
start riffing and then when you go validate, what's actually doing is it's following a reasoning model and it'll go validate and go, oh, wait a second, I did get it wrong. So we're in a space where it's not ones and zeros, right? It's not like yes or no, true or false.
yeah,
We're in this qualitative space, and then there's data on the edge of data, and it is expensive to rove the whole internet and know everything to a T and then provide that answer. And so because there's this thing called CAT, right? When you're working in AI, our dev team does this. You focus on cost optimization, right? Cost is important, accuracy is important, and timeliness is important. And all three of those in combination creates a challenge. And so that means you can't be God and have answer to every question without breaking the bank. So you have to scope it. And so that's why you can miss, and then you have to go back and do further reasoning and validate something. So yes, trust but verify.
yep, and give it guidance. Say, hey, utilize Microsoft's official documentation for the example I mentioned. Whenever you're helping answer these questions, so you can kind of give it context. Like, hey, I want you to utilize this for verification and help you.
Yeah, and here's the other thing is I'm putting something in the chat. You should also consider using the right large language model for the right
Yeah,
task. There's a really good
absolutely.
site called lmarena.ai that is constantly evaluating the latest models and it's testing it. And so it actually tells you, like if you go to the site, you'll see for text, for this, for that, all the different scenarios. This is the best rated large language model for this task. Right now, Claude, Sonnet, it's 4.5, is actually the latest release, is the best at text type response, but it keeps changing, right? So I would encourage you guys to check it out. Within LionGuard, within our app, we're using 3 different models securely, right? We're using it in a secure manner, but we're using there's a solution called Astro Nova from from AWS, and then there's Claude, and then there's Llama that we're actually using in combination, all three. And so we're using those in different ways because you can't always use the same model for the same task depending on what you're doing. So
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, I was just about to ask um, different ways that LionGuard is utilizing AI that's helping out.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I
excellent.
mean, I'll tell you, it's funny. It's like the one that's the most interesting that we found out is that we have these kind of domain-specific queries that you have to write. We call them metrics. And what we found is that our users loved the generative AI feature that allowed you to just create this complex query just by asking, look, I just need to get X, Y, and Z. It creates the query, and then it gets back the response. And then our AI team said, hey, by the way, you can use all these 140 languages as well. So I typed it back in Spanish. I had to do a little translation, and I tried a couple of different languages, came back with the same response for the queries. And then one of my co-founder did the same thing using an SQL query. For those that don't know it, SQL query language is the language you use to query databases. But the data we have is structured as JSON, which is a different format. So we're using a completely different language to talk to a completely different data set, and yet AI knows how to translate it. And it still successfully created the query. So I use it as, I think of it as a universal translator now. Like that's a really good use case when it comes to whatever language you speak, there's a way for it to process it and come out the other end and give you something relevant on the other side. But there's other use cases I can go on and on.
That one in particular has made my life a lot easier. So thank you guys for that one, for
All right.
help with the metrics. So appreciate that.
That's good. That's
Um,
good to hear. It's good to hear.
yeah, and with AI, I know it can be difficult. Like you mentioned, that site is a great solution. But a lot of different SaaS tools are starting to get their own AI built into them versus somebody trying to reinvent the wheel and build their own.
Yeah.
However, you do want to build your own, that's where Microsoft Fabric can come in and help. That can be a pretty big task. So that's one of the other reasons we kind of recommend starting with something like a Copilot, and you know, quick wins, things that it can do to help with the value. Even Copilot is like helping with drafting emails and making sure you're getting your point across and improving the communication. So that's been extremely helpful.
Actually, Todd, kind of related to that topic, I'm going to see if I can share my
Yeah.
screen here for a moment. Can you guys see this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, looks
So-
good.
So
Yep.
this is an interesting one. I asked AI for this one, and I drilled down and I said, give me the different career pathways, because I taught to a lot of students about career pathways to go, how are these careers being impacted with AI? What tools are there? And I was shocked at the number of tools that came back with embedded AI or completely AI based in each of these different professions. So I would ask the folks in the audience, go ask AI and ask, what are the AI based tools in our industry that are being used, right? Or for in different use cases. And what's interesting, the list keeps going, right? This is the second page, and it's unreal. And I know this because I've validated so many of these things and used many of these things, and they're like Mid-Journey and all of the AI based generation. The creative fields are completely changing, right? It's a completely new ball game. Software engineering, which is at the top here, Cursor, changing the game. I'll tell you one that I love to recommend is Lovable. If you've never used Lovable, it is an unreal tool. If you've ever wanted to create a software product but never wanted to code, try Lovable. You will be shocked at what it can produce with, again, give it as much context as you can. Do this. AI needs to chew on good stuff, right? I call it CUD. So you got to be concise, because you need to be tight, but yet you need it to be updatable, because you're going to keep changing it as you're iterating, and then you need it to be detailed enough so that you're able to really give it the good stuff. And if you give it the good stuff, it knows what to do, and it gives you valid responses back. So yeah, lots of stuff there.
Awesome. So I think we've had a lot of different questions in here, different comments. Let's see.
Yeah, one of the questions we have from the chat, which you kind of briefly answered, but maybe we can go into a little bit more depth. What are your thoughts on certain tools like Glenn that tap into everything you use for tools like Slack, Drive, email? Are those tools safe to use as a personal assistant?
Yeah, that's like remember the old Mint? Was it Mint, the one that integrates to all of your financial data? It's always the same concern, right? You've got this lowest common denominator of the security of that platform is the thing that you got to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I'll present my personal opinion. I'm a forward person on these kinds of tools. I shy away from new technology that happens to auto integrate into a wide swath of my world, because I'm still trying to understand what is the security focus of that company. And what puts me at ease at doing that is understanding what is their security focus. Go to their trust page, find out, did they go through a SOC 2 Type 2? Did they meet these security requirements? Are they rigid in these things before I would start to use it? It is an interesting dilemma you're in, because you've got Slack and then you've got Drive. So you've got a mix of, it looks like, Google and Slack. Guess what we ended up doing? We ended up moving from Slack to Teams. And so it merged all of our stuff into Microsoft 365. We moved away from Zoom, and we use Teams, right? So I think thinking about your IT stack is really important here. Todd, I don't know your thoughts.
Absolutely.
When you can centralize those things, it does create a good security umbrella for you using a reputable vendor. And then the integration process is simpler then.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what other thing that I'd highly recommend is within Microsoft Entra, and we do this for all of our clients when we onboard them, but you restrict who can just enable an integration to 365. So we make it to where if somebody does, there's only a few permissions by default that they can allow a particular app to do. If anything beyond that, they have to get admin approval, because there's a lot of applications out there that might be useful for AI, where it will if you look at all of the different permission lists whenever you're going to integrate it, it'll, for example, keep an offline copy of your entire mailbox if somebody adds that. So that can also be used maliciously. And like you said, that's where you have to look at the different vendors and different products, third-party tools, and look at their security strategy to determine, do I want a copy of my entire mailbox on that particular third party?
That's it. I mean, that's
So,
where, you go into these third-party tools. I saw some questions on Lovable. Same thing. This is the tool I was mentioning. And you literally, with a prompt, you can go create a mini app, right? So if you're in the marketing world and you need to create a landing page app that does something, this is a really great way to get from zero to hero without being a developer, right? It codes everything. It actually generates the code. It's a fully functioning website app type solution. It is definitely worth considering at a small subscription price, but yet I would be careful. Don't put confidential data here just yet, right? So start to understand how it's built, but what it produces is code that you can then deploy. Then you can go off and go do that, right? So start to think of it that way. Is how do you think of it as a process where you're using AI to speed up earlier phases of the process, just like a manufacturing facility, Lovable to prototype. Then you go take the code out. Then you use Cursor to do software development alongside it. Then you do testing and validation, and then you release. And that's software development. That's how it's changed compared to just 2 years ago.
yeah.
And that didn't exist about 2 or 3 years ago, which is kind of crazy.
The pace of which everything is going is pretty crazy. I remember with Microsoft whenever Copilot was starting to come out, they were saying that things were coming out before they could even have the white papers and the documentation on it. Things were moving faster than they could even keep up with, just because of AI and how everything is advancing so quickly. So pretty crazy.
The quick
James,
question, are there, James said a stupid comment. Just ignore James. Are there licensing issues with AI platforms? Meaning the using output.
Meaning using the output.
like copyright?
Yeah, it could be the copyright piece.
Alan, do you mind debriefing your question a little?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, copyright.
Yeah, it's the sources of data. It has rogued the internet. So the thing is, you want to be thoughtful about where it's referencing the sources, and actually get that feedback back and provide those references so that you can not only validate whether these things are correct, but the other is to provide the head nod to anything that is something that is referenced from another location. But it is something to be watchful for. There's definitely some legal stuff happening around this when things are brought to light that, wait, was this your own genuine idea, or was this actually taken from something else? I don't have any specific cases where I've seen like litigation and success around it just yet. I don't know, Todd, whether you're aware of any of that.
No, but I did see. So we utilize Cloudflare to host our domains and public DNS. And I saw that even just built into that, even with the free platform, you can have it block AI from utilizing content on your site. So instead of if you're publishing blogs or something and you don't want that data published on and accessible for a large language model, there's ways that you can block that. So definitely something to keep in mind.
The book writers, image without a, Sora 2, the image, music, entertainment are really places where this has become top of mind. And so we got to be careful about original art, original work, and, just lifting it. It does rob the original inventor or creator of that of so much. We're in that changing world, so it's definitely good to be cognizant of that. And it's fair to say, hey, this was AI enabled. Or this was AI generated, so that it's clear for folks where it is. But when you get the assist with it, I generally say, hey, you get the rough draft of something, go work with it, right? Maybe not the artwork, because that might be tougher to edit.
Yeah.
But